She had 30 seconds to realize what she had done. The glass doors of Hargrove Financial swung open at 8:59 on a Monday morning, and Remy Ashford walked into the lobby holding a coffee she had not touched and a notebook she had filled on a red-eye flight, and she looked up. And she stopped walking, and every thought she had in her head stopped with her. Because the man standing at the elevator bank, talking to her firm's managing director, wearing a suit that cost more than her monthly rent, and holding a Mont Blanc pen and looking like someone who had not been surprised by anything in a very long time, was the same man she had argued with on a plane 12 hours ago. The same cold eyes, the same jaw, the same exact quality of stillness that had made her want to fight him on principle. She had won that argument. She had been proud of herself. She had texted her best friend about it. And now that man turned his head, saw her across the lobby, and the corner of his mouth did something that was not quite a smile, and was not quite satisfaction, but was somehow both. She did not know his name yet. She was about to find out. His name was Caden Vale. He owned the company she worked for, and she had told him, at 35,000 feet in first class on Flight 247 from Los Angeles to New York, to mind his own business, bring his seat up before she made it a larger issue. Stay with me, because this story is not about the argument. It is about what happened after. 22 hours earlier, LAX, Gate 14B, 11:47 at night. Remy Ashford had been awake since 4 in the morning, and she was the kind of tired that does not fit inside a single word. Not sleepy, not drained. The kind of tired that belongs to someone who has been fighting a slow, invisible war for so long, she has forgotten what it felt like before the fighting started. She was 28 years old. She had a degree from a state school she had paid for herself. She had 6 years at Hargrove Financial and a risk model she had built from scratch over 3 weeks of late nights that had just been used in the most significant acquisition of the firm's history. She had a citizen watch on her wrist that had belonged to her mother. Small face, scratched leather band. The kind of watch that tells time and nothing else. And she wore it because it reminded her that the women in her family had always kept going and that keeping going was enough. She had a copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius in her bag, with the spine split and one line highlighted so many times the page was almost orange. The line was, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." She had needed that line more times than she could count. She sat at Gate 14B, and they called her name for a first-class upgrade, and she almost said no because she did not trust things that arrived without explanation. She picked up her bag and walked down the jet bridge. The cabin smelled like leather and something expensive, and the particular quality of recycled air that only exists at altitude. She found seat 2B, window side, tucked her bag overhead, opened her book, and for the first time in what felt like weeks, she exhaled and let the tension go. Seat 2A was empty. It was not empty for long. She heard him before she saw him. Deliberate footsteps, the kind that move through a space and expect the space to adjust rather than the other way around. He sat down without looking at her. Opened a laptop. The screen reflected in the window showed spreadsheets, quarterly projections, a column of numbers that someone had already formatted for a presentation. She noticed that because she always noticed numbers first. It was the thing about her that most people got wrong. They assumed she was all logic and no instinct. She was the opposite. The numbers were just the language she used to describe things she already felt. She was almost asleep when his seat came back. All the way. At midnight. Her tray table buckled and her water hit the floor and her notebook slid, and she caught it with one hand and caught her book with the other and sat very still for 3 seconds. Because she was choosing, deliberately and consciously, to begin this interaction at her best. Then she reached forward and tapped the headrest once. He turned. Dark eyes, the expression of a man who had not been asked to adjust himself in a very long time and was not sure how he felt about being asked now. She said quietly, "Could you bring your seat up a little?" I was using my tray. He said, "We are in first class. The seats recline." She said, "I know they recline. I am asking if you would recline slightly less." He said, "I would prefer not to." Then he turned back to his laptop. Remy sat with that for exactly 4 seconds. Then she pressed the flight attendant button. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She did not perform outrage for the cabin. She cited the airline's shared space policy, described the situation calmly, and asked whether the gentleman in 2A might move his seat to a neutral position for the remainder of the flight. The flight attendant looked at the man. The man looked at Remy. He brought the seat up. She said thank you to the flight attendant. She opened her book. And then the man said quietly, almost to himself, "Analysts, always measuring everything." She went very still. She turned to look at him. "How do you know I am an analyst?" His eyes moved to her notepad, to the columns of figures she had been running from memory, to the Hargrove financial lanyard tucked in the front pocket of her bag. "Lucky guess," he said. And then he almost smiled. Not warm, not kind. The smile of a man who had just encountered something he had not expected and found it interesting. She did not smile back. She put in her earbuds and stared at the window and told herself to sleep. She did not sleep. She texted Billy at 12:14. "Just shut down a man in first class who tried to recline into my soul." He already knew I was an analyst somehow. Felt incredible. Billy replied in under a minute. Was he at least hot? Remy looked at the man in 2A sharp profile, jaw like a decision, hands on a keyboard that looked like they signed things most people were afraid to say out loud. She typed, "Irrelevant. Going to sleep." She did not sleep. She spent 4 hours and 11 minutes pretending she was not acutely aware of exactly how much presence the man in 2A had, simply by being still. Monday arrived the way Mondays arrived for Remy Ashford, which was to say fast, ungrateful, and already one step ahead of her. She had landed at JFK at 7:15. She had taken the subway from Jamaica because she had learned that a woman who takes the subway stays connected to what is real. And losing what is real was the one thing she genuinely feared. She arrived at Hargrove Financial at 9:52, and she already knew something was wrong before the elevator doors opened because the floor had a different frequency. The particular electrical hum of a space where 40 people are pretending not to be afraid. Billy Okoro was at her elbow before she reached her desk. Billy had the expression she wore only when the news was bad, and she had already decided to deliver it with full eye contact because she believed the truth deserved to be looked at directly. "They moved your desk," Billy said, "and Vail Capital closed Friday. Full integration. New org chart went out this morning by email." Remy looked at her inbox. She looked at the org chart. She was now in the analysis support group, reporting to a woman named Fiona, who had been at the firm for 9 months. Then Prescott Lane appeared from the corner office hallway. Prescott was 35 and wore success the way some men wear cologne, too much of it, and applied in a way that made you aware of the effort. He had a Rolex that had appeared on his wrist 2 years ago, without explanation. He had been attaching his name to Remy's work for 3 of the 4 years they had been on the same team, showing up to her client meetings, inserting himself into her project decks, and always managing to be physically present when any recognition was being distributed. He smiled at Remy, wide and warm and completely rehearsed. "Organizational realignment," he said. "New leadership wanted fresh eyes on team structures. You will be supporting the transition analysis from the support group. Great opportunity to show the new people what you can do." She said, I built the Southeast restructuring model from scratch. That was my deal. He said, the transition documentation reflects the team effort. That was the decision from above. She said, I will need to see that in writing. He was already looking past her. She went to HR and sat across from Patricia Nguyen, who had the look of a woman who had been a reasonable person once and had learned through experience that being reasonable in an HR office was a particular kind of slow suffering. Patricia opened a folder and did not quite open it all the way. There were concerns raised, Patricia said, about collaborative working style. By whom? Remy said. The concerns were part of the integration transition review, Patricia said. Remy sat very still. She said, my last formal review was 8 months ago. James Hargrove wrote it personally. It was exceptional. I would like you to document, with a timestamp and your signature, that I sat in this chair this morning and told you that someone altered my performance file. Patricia looked at her for a long time. Then she picked up a pen. Remy walked back to her desk. She opened a new spreadsheet. She labeled the first column date and the second column event, and the third column evidence and the fourth column source. She began to type. Billy appeared. Are you building what I think you are building? Billy said. I am building a record of everything I know and everything I still need to find, Remy said. That is the calmest thing anyone has ever said about being professionally dismantled, Billy said. How are you not screaming? Because screaming tells him where I am, Remy said. I am not ready for him to know where I am yet. Billy set a coffee on the corner of the desk. Black, no sugar. She had never needed to be told. Remy kept typing. The all-staff introduction meeting was Thursday at 10. By 9:58, the 52nd floor conference room had 43 people in it, and the particular energy of a room full of intelligent professionals who are all performing calm while calculating their own survival odds. Remy sat in the third row. Not front, not back. The seat with the clearest sight line to both the door and the head of the table. She had her notebook open. She had her pen. She was ready. Then Caden Vale walked in. Rooms change when something unavoidable enters them. Not loudly, not dramatically. The change is in the air itself, a drop in pressure, a shift in temperature. The collective held breath of 43 people deciding simultaneously whether this man is someone they should be afraid of. He was wearing a suit the color of deep water. He had the Mont Blanc pen in his breast pocket. He walked to the head of the table and stood there for 3 full seconds without speaking. 3 seconds is a long time to stand in silence in front of a room, and he did not seem to know it. Then his eyes moved across the space, systematic, professional, the gaze of a man who reads rooms before he commits to anything. And they found her. Less than 1 second. His eyes on hers for less than 1 second and then gone, moved on, professional, nothing. But he had found her immediately, in a room of 43 people, in under 3 seconds. Remy felt her pulse in her throat. He spoke for 11 minutes without notes, without slides, without anything except the plan delivered from memory with the precision of a man who had thought about it long enough that it lived in his body now rather than on paper. At the end he said, 90-day performance evaluation for all director-level positions and above. Performance determines structure, not legacy, not title. We will keep what works. Everything else changes. He turned. The room exhaled. Prescott was already nodding with the specific enthusiasm of a man who has decided that every new regime will be good for him. Remy was already calculating. The crowd moved toward the door. She was almost at the elevator when the footsteps behind her slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. Just enough. Miss Ashford. She turned. Caden Vale, 3 feet away, folder under one arm, Mont Blanc in his right hand. Looking at her with the door that is closed but not locked expression she had been trying to read since midnight on the plane. "Mr. Vale?" she said. "The Southeast restructuring model on the Hargrove integration portfolio," he said. "You built it." She did not ask how he knew. "Yes," she said. "It has an unusual approach to second-layer risk assumptions. Standard models miss tail risk in mid-cycle acquisitions," she said. I adjusted for it. He was quiet for a moment. The particular quiet of a man who has just confirmed something he had already suspected and is deciding what to do with the confirmation. "Thursday," he said. "My office, 4 o'clock. Walk me through it." He walked away. Billy appeared from nowhere, which was one of her primary talents. "Did he just summon you personally?" Billy said. "Apparently," Remy said. "The CEO of Vale Capital asked you specifically to come to his office Thursday. That is what just happened. And you are not dissolving because..." "Because," Remy said, pressing the elevator button. "I think this is the opening I needed." Billy stared. "You are either the calmest person in the world, or you are experiencing something that requires medical attention." "I am fine," Remy said. The doors closed. She leaned against the back wall. She let herself have one full breath of feeling exactly how not fine she was. Then she opened her notebook and started writing. She had 48 hours to figure out what he knew, what he did not know, and how to turn a Thursday meeting into the move that changed everything. Wednesday, integration review, full board, 52nd floor. Remy sat in the folding chair at the edge of the table, third from the left, the junior seat that told everyone in the room exactly what they were supposed to think of her. She had a notebook and a pen and a water she would not drink, and she had arrived 8 minutes early to choose the seat with the clearest sight lines to Prescott at the screen and Caden at the head of the table. She was going to watch all of it. Prescott presented for 40 minutes. Her work, her data, her exact language, paraphrased at the paragraph level but structurally identical, architecturally hers. The specific way she handled second-layer assumptions in a mid-cycle acquisition context. The particular logic that she had developed over 3 weeks of late nights when the rest of the team had gone home, and she had sat alone at her desk with the city going dark outside, and built something that was genuinely good. She sat with her pen on the page, and she did not move. She had been here before. Not here exactly, but here in the way that matters. Watching someone take what she had built and put their name on it in front of a room full of people. She had been here before, and it had taken 3 months to recover, and she had promised herself that the next time she would not recover. She would respond. She was not ready to respond yet. She was still building. Caden listened to Prescott with the attention of a man who gives everything the same quality of focus, because incomplete focus is a form of disrespect to himself. 35 minutes of silence. Then, walk me through the second-layer risk assumptions. Page 14. Prescott's rhythm broke. Just slightly. You would not have noticed unless you were watching for it. Remy was watching for it. "The model accounts for volatility in the mid-cycle acquisition window," Prescott said. "Comprehensive methodology. The specific variables," Caden said. "The ones driving the non-linear output in the Eastern projection. The team built an integrated approach to that section." "Which member of the team?" A pause. Half a breath too long. "Collaborative effort," Prescott said. Caden's eyes moved. Deliberate crossed the room and stopped on Remy, who in that exact moment, without planning it, without performing it, had already written the answer in her notebook because her hand always moved when her mind recognized a problem it had already solved. Caden saw it. She knew he saw it because his eyes stayed on the notebook for exactly 1 extra second before he looked away. Not at Prescott. Just away. The posture of a man who has confirmed something he suspected and is filing it carefully. "Thank you, Prescott," he said. "We will follow up." The meeting ended. The room began to empty. Remy stood up. She was almost at the door when Prescott caught up beside her. "You know this is how it works," he said, quietly, just between them. "You build the thing and somebody else presents it. That is how it has always worked here." She looked at him. He looked for a fraction of a second, like he genuinely believed what he was saying. Like he had told himself this story so many times that it had become true for him. She said nothing. She walked out. She went to the women's bathroom on the 23rd floor and ran cold water over the inside of her wrists and breathed. She opened Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. She closed the book. She straightened her blazer. She went back to her desk. And then, at 4:57 that afternoon, she found it. She had been searching the backup documentation for the original file metadata when she noticed something in the integration transition folder she had not been authorized to access before today. A secondary review folder, sealed under a compliance lock that had expired at midnight when the 90-day integration window officially opened. She had 5 minutes before the system would log her session. She moved fast. She opened the folder. She found 11 documents. The 5th one stopped her cold. It was an approval chain, a sign-off document for the Transition Performance Review Protocol. Prescott Lane had authored the instruction to revise her file, that she had already suspected. What she had not suspected was the name on the approval line. The signature was from Hargrove's outgoing CFO, Roland Fitch, not just Prescott. Roland Fitch had signed off on it. Roland Fitch, who had led the integration negotiation. Roland Fitch, who had been in the room for every board meeting where her work had been discussed. The document was dated 6 weeks before the acquisition closed. This was not one person acting alone. This was 2 people who had decided together that the easiest way to protect the valuation of the deal was to quietly bury the analyst who could prove that the numbers Prescott had been presenting as the team's work were actually the work of one person who had not been compensated or credited accordingly. She photographed the document on her phone. She closed the folder. She closed her laptop. She sat for a long moment looking at the Manhattan skyline through the window and understanding for the first time the full shape of what had been built around her. Then she picked up her notebook and added 2 names to the source column. She was going to need more than 48 hours, but she was going to use every second of them. Thursday, 4 o'clock, 52nd floor corner office. The view was the kind of view that took a specific kind of ambition to earn. Manhattan at late afternoon, amber light, glass towers, the silver line of the Hudson in the distance. The whole city arranged below, like it was waiting for a decision. Caden was at his desk. Mont Blanc to the right of his laptop. Half-finished espresso to the left. On the corner shelf, a framed photograph, face down. She noticed it immediately. She said nothing. She opened to page 1 of her annotated copy of the risk model and began. He listened with the real attention, not performed attention, not the kind that waits politely to disagree. He followed her argument at the same speed she was making it. 20 minutes in, he stopped her. "You knew the model had an exposure point in the Eastern acquisition set." "Yes," she said. "I patched it before it became a real risk. The patch is undocumented because I applied it at 2 in the morning and forgot to log it formally." He looked at her. "That is a $180 million problem you are describing with remarkable calm. I have been having this conversation with myself for 3 weeks, she said. You know what Prescott did. She did not answer that directly. I know what the evidence will show when I finish building the case, she said. There is a difference between knowing something and being able to prove it. I am not coming to you with accusations. I am coming to you with a case. He was very still. What do you need from me? Server access, she said. The pre-merger backup infrastructure, the full transition documentation archive, including sealed review folders, and time. He picked up the Mont Blanc and wrote an authorization code on a notepad, tore it off cleanly, and slid it toward her. His handwriting was exact. The kind that belongs to someone who thinks before they commit a mark to paper. She took it. He was already at the window, at the espresso machine on the credenza, matte black, the city going amber behind it. He set a second cup on the edge of the desk without looking at her. She looked at it. I have coffee downstairs, she said. That is gas station coffee in a paper cup, he said. This is single origin Ethiopian. He sat back down. The Manhattan skyline was burning gold behind him. You have been holding your cup for 40 minutes without taking a second sip, he said. You do not care about the coffee. You care about having something to hold. She stared at him. He looked back with the expression of a man who had said something personal by accident and was deciding whether to take it back. He did not take it back. Drink it, he said. You look like you have not slept since the plane. She picked up the cup. She drank it. It was extraordinary. She set the cup down and did not say so. So you do remember, she said. The plane. He said nothing, but he did not deny it either. They worked through the model for another 40 minutes. At some point, the city outside had gone from gold to purple, and neither of them had moved toward the door. He asked her about the risk adjustment methodology in detail, and she explained it the way she explained everything she actually cared about, which was without simplifying it. Because simplifying things you care about is a kind of lying. He understood every word. She had not had a conversation like this with anyone at work in 3 years. Then he said, without looking up from the model, "Why do you stay at a firm where this is happening to you?" She looked at him. "Because I built something real here," she said. "And I am not leaving it to the person who stole it." He was quiet. "Because I have done that before," he said. "Not in exactly this way. But I have walked away from something that was mine because staying felt like too much trouble." He paused. "I regret it." She did not ask what it was. She did not need to. The photograph on the shelf, face down, told her enough. She looked at her watch. The Citizen, 8:47. She had been in his office for 4 hours and 47 minutes. She reached for her bag. He said, "Thursday was a long time ago." She stopped. "It was yesterday," she said. He almost smiled. "When you are inside something real," he said, "a day can be a long time." She looked at him for a moment longer than she had allowed herself to look at him before. Then she picked up her bag and walked to the door. She had 37 hours left on the authorization code. She was going to use every second of them. She should have known Prescott would move first. He had been watching her access patterns. He had seen the after-hours server queries. He had run the math on what she was building and understood that if she finished it, he was finished. And so he had done what threatened men do when they can feel the walls closing. He had gone to the top. Friday morning at 8:47, Caden's executive assistant found Remy at her desk and used the word immediately and maintained eye contact until she stood up. The office felt different before the door was fully open. The warmth from Thursday, The 4 hours and 47 minutes and the Ethiopian coffee and the way he had said a day can be a long time when you're inside something real, was gone. The wall was up. She could feel it from the doorway. He was standing. He had a folder in his hand. He set it on the desk and slid it toward her. She opened it. An email thread. Her name in the from field. A competitor firm's address in the 4 weeks ago. Confidential merger terms. She read it twice, carefully. Then she set it down. "This is fabricated," she said. "The IT forensics team logged the send from your work terminal. Then the log is fabricated too." His jaw tightened. "That is a significant claim." "Yes," she said. "It is also true, and I can prove it. But I need 48 hours. 24, he said. She did not argue. She turned toward the door. Her hand was on the frame when he said her name. She stopped. She did not turn fully. His voice had something underneath it that sounded like something he was choosing, a decision being made in real time. "Remy, if you did this." She turned then, all the way. She looked directly at him because she wanted him to see her face when she said the next thing. She said, "I did not do this. And when I prove that, I need you to remember something. You have been able to read rooms your entire career. You read me on a plane before you knew my name. You asked me to your office because you saw something in me that none of the people above me were willing to see. That instinct was right. Do not let one folder from a man you have known for 3 days override a judgment you made with your own eyes." She walked out. The elevator was empty. She got in and leaned against the back wall and let the doors close and let herself have exactly 10 seconds of feeling the full weight of what had just happened. He had almost believed it. He had come that close. She breathed. Then she pressed the lobby button. She had 24 hours, and she knew where to start. She walked out into the October night, and Billy was already there. Coat on, printer at home, leftover pasta. Expression that said, "I know, and I am not leaving, and we are doing this together." "You have 24 hours, Billy said. 24, Remy said. They walked. 2 buildings away from where they stood, on the 52nd floor. Caden Vale was standing at his window with the Mont Blanc in his hand and the photograph on the shelf still face down, and a choice he had just made that he was already beginning to doubt. He picked up his phone. He called his head of IT security directly. He said, "I want the forensic chain of custody on that email. Full audit. Tonight, not Prescott's team, mine." He hung up. He stood at the window for a long time. The city moved below him. He had been wrong before, and he had lived with it. He was not willing to be wrong about this one. Billy's apartment in Astoria. The kitchen table. MacBook Pro open, multiple windows running. The soft, warm light of a standing lamp that Billy kept because she said fluorescent light was for people who had given up. Remy set up with the authorization code and every note she had made since the Monday morning of the acquisition, and she started. Billy made pasta at 10:30 and set a bowl next to the laptop without a word. Remy ate without looking up. The server access took 40 minutes to navigate properly. The backup system was 17 months old and had not been designed for remote access. She felt her way through it, using her knowledge of how it had been structured from 3 years of daily use. Finding the folder architecture from memory, the way you find your way through a dark room you know well. Midnight. First discovery. A timestamp mismatch. The Southeast restructuring model in the current transition documentation had a created date of November 3rd. The identical model in the backup server, running on automated preservation protocols since September, had a created date of September 22nd, 41 days earlier. Her initials in the metadata in 3 places. Prescott's initials nowhere. She typed the finding into her audit document with the file path and a direct comparison of both records. She kept going. 1:45 in the morning. Version history differential. The current documentation showed 47 revisions. The backup version showed 14, all before October 7th. She extracted the revision comparison data and found 33 revisions that existed only in the current version, systematic changes to the author attribution field, made incrementally over 4 weeks, as if someone had been trying to make the attribution look like it had evolved naturally over a collaborative process, rather than been changed deliberately in a series of careful moves. It was meticulous work. She gave Prescott that. He was thorough. 2 in the morning. The email thread. Not the fabricated one, the real one. The original chain from the integration transition review, 6 weeks before the acquisition closed, between Prescott and a transition consultant with Vail Capital Integration Team access. The thread was 6 emails long. The 6th one said, "Revise the performance documentation for Remy Ashford per our conversation. Outcomes should reflect collaborative competency concerns and a pattern of working outside team structure. Keep it realistic, not dramatic. We need it to hold up in an HR review. Realistic, not dramatic." She read those 4 words 3 times. She understood then the full shape of what had been built around her. Not impulsive, not reactionary, planned, calibrated, designed to be exactly believable enough to survive scrutiny. 3:45 in the morning. The spoofed email header data. The fabricated leak email had been routed through a third-party anonymizing service based in Estonia. When she ran the IP against the company network security logs, she found the same service had been used twice before, on 2 outbound emails from executive accounts, neither of which had been flagged or investigated. This was not a method invented under pressure. This was a method that had been tested and refined. And then she found the Roland Fitch approval document she had photographed 3 days earlier and cross-referenced it against the consultant contract. And found that the same consulting firm had done transition documentation work on 2 of Vail Capital's previous acquisitions, which meant this was a pattern that predated Hargrove, which meant Prescott may not have invented this, he may have been taught it. She sat back. The kitchen was warm and quiet. Billy was asleep on the couch with her laptop on her chest, and the coffee she had made at midnight, cold and untouched on the side table. Remy looked at her audit document. 47 pages. Time-stamped, cross-referenced, source citation for every claim. A reconstruction of what had been built against her, rendered with enough precision that comparison to the truth was not a matter of opinion. She opened Meditations one last time. She did not read it. She held it for a moment the way you hold something that has carried you through something hard. Then she set it on the table. She sent the document to the printer. She listened to the pages come out clean. She was ready. The board meeting was called for Friday afternoon. Full attendance, no agenda, which meant everyone in the building spent Friday morning in the specific anxiety of not knowing whether they were about to be elevated or eliminated. Remy arrived early. She connected her MacBook Pro to the room's display system. She arranged the 47-page audit in 2 sets. She put the USB drive with the backup server files on the table next to her water glass. She sat down and she waited. The board filed in. Legal. H.R. Patricia sat in the far corner with a file she had been keeping that nobody was supposed to know she was keeping. Prescott arrived and took the seat 3 places from Caden. His suit was new. He looked polished and comfortable and slightly too relaxed, which was the tell. Genuinely confident people do not perform comfort. He was performing it. Caden walked in last, sat at the head of the table. His eyes went to Remy. 1 second. She looked back. His expression gave her nothing. Fine. She was not here for his expression. She stood up. "What you are about to see," she said, "is a documented record of 4 separate actions taken to misrepresent my performance, misattribute my work, construct a false leak accusation, and coordinate approval for those actions across 2 members of this firm's leadership structure." She advanced to slide 1. She walked them through all 47 pages in 31 minutes. No performance, no anger, no editorializing. Each finding, each source, each piece of the timeline laid against the fabricated version until the gap between what had happened and what had been claimed was not ambiguous anymore. Slide 11. The timestamp mismatch. The 41-day gap. Her initials. His absence. Slide 19. The email from Prescott to the consultant. Keep it realistic, not dramatic. We need it to hold up. Slide 26. The Roland Fitch approval signature. The sign-off that said this was not one person acting in panic. This was a decision made 6 weeks in advance by 2 people who had the authority to make it and the resources to cover it. The room went very quiet at slide 26. Prescott interrupted at slide 31. "This is a constructed narrative," he said. "She has had server access for 40 hours. She could have put anything in there and called it documentation. The server logs are read only at the authorization level she was given," Caden said. He said it without looking at Prescott. He was reading the distributed audit copy, his pen moving in small marks along the margin. She could not have altered anything. She could only have read. Prescott opened his mouth. "Prescott," Caden said, "the particular quiet that is louder than anything else in a room. Your device ID is on 3 of the metadata edit records." The room stopped. Prescott's jaw moved. Nothing came out. "Legal will walk you out," Caden said. And that was it. Not a speech, not a monologue, just the truth, fully built, doing the work it was always meant to do when someone bothers to build it correctly. Prescott stood up. He walked out between 2 members of the legal team, and the door closed and the room exhaled. Patricia was called next. Then the IT director. Then Roland Fitch, by telephone, through legal. The investigation would begin Monday. The Southeast restructuring model would be reattributed in all documentation within 24 hours. A formal correction to every board communication where the work had been misrepresented would be issued in writing by end of week. Billy caught Remy's eye from across the table. She made the face that meant, "I knew it, and also I am going to cry in the elevator, and please pretend you did not notice." The room cleared slowly, the way rooms clear after something significant has happened. People moving quietly as if they do not want to disturb whatever has just been set right. When everyone was gone, it was just Remy and Caden and the Manhattan skyline going deep purple and gold through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the 52nd floor. He sat at the head of the empty table and he looked at her. "How long did you know it was Prescott?" he said. 3 weeks. "Why did you not come to me sooner?" "Because I needed you to be able to trust the evidence," she said. "Not just trust me. There is a difference. I did not want your faith. I wanted the case to be strong enough that faith was not required." He was quiet then. I almost believed him. "I know," she said. "Remy," he said. "Something in it. Something that cost him something to let out. I am sorry." She let it land. She did not deflect it or minimize it. She let it be real because it was real, and it had been a long time since someone in a position above hers had said those words to her and meant them. "Do not be sorry," she said. "Just remember the difference between a document and a room. You know how to read both. Use that." He almost smiled. And in that almost smile, she saw for a second the man he might have been before whatever had happened to put the wall up. She gathered her papers. She picked up her bag. She was almost at the door when he spoke again. "One more thing," he said. She turned. He reached to the shelf beside the window and turned the photograph face up. A woman, dark hair, laughing at something just outside the frame. The kind of photograph that exists because someone caught a real moment without planning it. "My wife," he said. Not a confession, not a performance, just a fact he had decided to stop keeping in the dark. 3 years ago, West Side Highway, drunk driver. She was coming to meet me for dinner. He looked at the photograph for a moment. I threw myself into work because working was the only thing I knew how to do that did not require me to feel anything. I closed every door I could find. I thought if nothing could reach me, then nothing could be taken again. He paused. I was wrong about that. Things still get in. You just do not get to keep them when the door is closed. Remy set her bag down. "I grew up watching my mother work 2 jobs, she said. Not in exchange for his honesty, not to perform her own wound, just because it wanted to be said, and she had spent enough years not saying things that wanted to be said. She worked every day. She never complained. She never asked anyone to see her. And I decided I would build something so solid that nobody could touch it. I would be excellent enough that excellence would protect me." She looked at him. "It does not work that way." He looked back. "You did?" he said. "You built something real. I know what that looks like." She held his eyes. He picked up the Mont Blanc. He wrote on a sheet of paper and slid it across the table toward her. She read it. Director of Risk Strategy. New division. Full authority over team structure, methodology, and hiring. Salary listed. She looked up. "For what it is worth," she said, "you were extremely rude on that plane." Something happened to his face. The wall did not go down. It simply decided, for the first time in a long time, that it did not have to be a wall all the time. "You argued back," he said. "Nobody does that. Someone should have been doing it years before I got on that flight." He stood. He held out his hand. She looked at his hand, then at him. She shook it. His hand was warm. The grip was firm without performing firmness. The kind of handshake that is actually a promise being made between 2 people who understand what a promise costs. She did not let go immediately. Neither did he. "Partners," he said. "Partners," she said. And she walked out of that building feeling for the first time in a very long time like she was not carrying anything she needed to put down. 6 months later, the door on the 52nd floor reads, Director of Risk Strategy, R. Ashford. Billy Okoro stands in the hallway on a Thursday morning with her coffee and her very specific expression. The one that means she is witnessing something and has decided to have her opinions about it quietly for now. Caden has come in from the boardroom. He sets a book on the corner of Remy's desk. He says something too quiet to hear through the glass. He walks out. He never lingers. But he also never leaves without making sure she has what she needs, and that is its own kind of lingering. Remy picks up the book, The 48 Laws of Power, a yellow sticky note on the cover. She peels it off. She reads it. She laughs. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere warm and does not apologize for how loud it is. Billy presses her face slightly closer to the glass. At lunch, she will ask what the note said. Remy will say it was a work note. Billy will say that is absolutely not true based on the face you made, and I told you he was watching you from the very first meeting, and I want credit for this. Remy will say nobody likes a person who says I told you so. Billy will say I'm going to say it every single day for the rest of your life. The note says, You already knew most of these before you got on that plane. Every single one of them. CV Remy puts the note in her notebook between two pages she has read so many times, the paper is soft. She goes back to work. She is home. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself. You will never find it in the people who perform it the loudest. You will find it in the woman who runs cold water over her wrists in the bathroom on the 23rd floor and then straightens her blazer and goes back to her desk. You will find it in the notebook that keeps growing even when the evidence is supposed to be gone. You will find it in the person who opens a spreadsheet instead of screaming, who builds a case instead of begging, who chooses precision over panic every single time. Remy Ashford never lowered herself to prove her worth to someone who had already decided not to see it. She never made herself smaller to make someone else feel more comfortable. What she did instead was simpler and harder, and the only thing that has ever actually worked. She built the truth so carefully, so completely, so undeniably, that no lie could stand next to it without collapsing under the comparison. That is the only power worth having. Not the power someone gives you, not the power someone can take back. The power you grew yourself in the dark at 4 a.m. when no one was watching and you did it anyway. She found it at a desk in the analysis support group. She carried it through every meeting and every setback and every moment when disappearing quietly would have been so much easier. And somewhere over New York, at 35,000 feet on a red-eye flight, a man who had forgotten what real looked like heard a woman argue for her tray table with the precision of someone who had never learned to accept less than what was fair. He did not forget. He had been waiting for something real for a very long time. Sometimes the most important thing that will ever happen in your life begins with the most ordinary act of courage. Hold your ground. Build the case. Let the truth do what only the truth can do.